Well, you might have come across some of the talk recently in the press, in the media, other places about barefoot running and whether or not you should do it, the pros and cons, etc., etc. And what I'd like to cover in this video is the Vibram 5-finger shoes, which are a compromise for those who want to go or want to try barefoot running, but don't really want to go out on the street, etc., with nothing on the bottom of their feet because, you know, there's a lot of dirt out there, there's a lot of glass, and sharp stuff out there, and you don't want to get damaged. So what I thought I would do is go over these Vibram 5-fingers with you, just give you a little bit of a talk about how best to use them and how best to look after them, and then one or two other bits and bobs of information. But firstly, why would you go barefoot running? Well, if you come across the book by Christopher McDougall, Born to Run. Now, there are two other books out there at the moment called Born to Run, one by Bruce Springsteen, I think, springs to mind, and another one by Michael Morpurgo. It's neither of those two, Christopher McDougall, and it's an interesting book about his exploration of running, and there's loads of videos all over YouTube about it, actually, Born to Run. But he's a great advocate of barefoot running and proposes that, in fact, we were born to run barefoot. There are not opposing views necessarily, but there are views that too much running can do you harm, and I'll link to a really interesting TED talk, in fact, by a cardiologist who shows that, in fact, ultra running, which is right at the other extreme, might not be that good for you long term. Anyway, that aside, in terms of barefoot running, why would you want to do it? Well, there's an awful lot of indication that basically the human foot is built in such a way that it's supposed to support itself and it's supposed to support its own impact. And if you look at the way I'm running on the treadmill, you can see that as I run, and apologies for the lighting and the flickering, but as I run, you can see that the impact falls on the front of my foot as I run with barefoot, and my foot expands in order to accommodate that impact. And all of the shock wave goes through that expansion of the foot, if you like. And if you look at my heel, when it does touch the ground, it barely kisses the ground. So yes, it does make contact, but it barely kisses the ground. Now, for those of you who know, that's the first reason why you would want to go barefoot running, is because it really does change the way it uses the foot, how the foot is supposed to be built, and it reduces the impact massively. When you run with a pair of trainers on with heels, of course, you cannot run, or it's very difficult to run on the front of your feet. And as a consequence, most of the impact goes to the back of your foot, which is then transferred up into your knee. And it takes all those bones, half the bones in your body apparently are in your foot, in order to live up to its reputation as a wonderful engineering feat, if you don't mind the pun. And all those bones that are there, in order to absorb that impact and in order to work with that impact, are then taken out of the equation by the fact that you've got arch supports, that you've got heel supports, which actually make you thud on the ground. Now, just because you go barefoot running doesn't mean you're suddenly going to beat everybody. In fact, in the weekly park runs, I'm frequently overtaken by people who are just plod, slapping along, heel thumping all the way past me, which is very frustrating, but hey-ho, maybe one day I'll get them. But anyway, for those of you who are interested, and I can't recommend that book enough, go and have a read. It kind of discusses everything. Even the fact that, the arch of a foot is a finely engineered piece of kit, and the last thing you do with an arch is support it underneath, because that completely undermines the purpose of an arch, etc., etc. For those of you who want to try barefoot running, the first thing you've got to learn is that you can't just go straight into it. You cannot go straight into it. The reason you can't go straight into it is because we've customized our feet now to be supported in all sorts of ways by all sorts of shoes and all sorts of arch supports and heel supports. And because of that, your ankles, your calves, your Achilles tendons aren't possibly strengthened in the way that they should be in order for you to go straight into it. So the idea would be to get a pair of these and maybe just do 5 minutes first of all, and then build up very, very slowly, maybe even walk around the house. And in fact, when I wanted to really get into and change my running style, of course, another advantage of running barefoot is that there's less surface area touching the ground, and so that's going to be much more efficient. That's why we pump our tyres up in our cars, so there's less surface area touching the ground, so they're much more efficient as they spin round. Similar kind of rationale when you're running, I suppose. But I wanted to try it. Now, what I did for several months before was walk around the house in bare feet first of all and concentrate walking on the front of my feet. So my heels very rarely touch the ground. And in fact, when you do walk bare feet and when you run bare feet, first of all, you will notice that it's very uncomfortable and very counterintuitive to run on the heels of your feet. You're more weighted to the front of your feet. So anyway, these help you do that. They help you do the barefoot thing, but they give you some rubberized supports to ensure that you don't cut your feet when you're going out on the trail, etc., etc. They come in various different colours, obviously, and different styles as well. Some of them are slightly thicker, some of them are slightly thinner. This has got a few millimetre heel on it, and what they say is this is a good starting shoe for barefoot because it's got just a tiny bit of, because it goes down inside there, so it really is a tiny bit of heel there, really thinner than that, I would say it's about that, which kind of gets you along the road and helps you to progress along your barefoot running aspirations. And they do thicker versions and thinner versions. Very light shoe. They're called 5 fingers because you put your 5 toes in them, which is a little bit weird. One of the objections is how you get them on, and I'll show you how to do that very easily. Right, a lot of people struggle with getting these things on, so I'm just going to show you the easy way to do it, and bear with me because I am trying to do this behind a camera. Now, first of all, make sure they're as loose as you can with the strings undone, etc., nice and loose. The idea is not to put your foot fully in them, you see, just your toes. Leave your heel hanging out like that if you like, and then to just wiggle your feet forward and get your toes lined up with each of the holes. Now, you might not be able to get them all straight in there, depending on the length of your toes straight away, but just wiggle them in, make sure, just got the little guy to go, yep, make sure they're lined up, and then you'll find that when you put your finger in there and pull it on now, and pull your tongue, it all tightens up, everything's where it should be. You can pull it tight with that, pop it down in its little Velcro popper down there. It's just not... There you go, and that's done. And hopefully you can do exactly the same with the next one. Make sure it's nice and loose. Don't put it fully on. All you're doing is just getting your toes kind of into situation. Wiggle your big one in, wiggle your next toe in, wiggle the one next, and you're not getting them all the way in. Remember, you're just kind of lining them up with the beginning of the toe compartment. Get your finger in the back, pull it over your heel, and when you pull your tongue in, your toes slip right to the end, and everything's fantastic. And again, you can tighten them up with that, and I've got the Velcro bit this time, and there we are. And that's the easy way of getting them on, and no panic, no worries, it's all fab. Now, once you've got them on, of course, you can see how I'm running with them on the running machine now, and basically it's just as I was running without the shoes on. My feet are expanding as I run to absorb the impact. My heels are just barely kissing the ground. I normally run at about 180 beats per minute, and whether I increase or decrease my pace, my running gait in terms of the way my feet hit the ground remains exactly the same in these, which I couldn't do in trainers. In terms of upkeep and looking after them, now if you're going to wear these, one top tip is to give your feet a quick wipe with a wet wipe, especially if your feet are dirty when you put them on, if you haven't just got out of the shower or something. Quick wet wipe, give your feet a good wipe. That helps to keep them clean and fresh smelling for longer. Some people use these 5-fingered socks. Well, for me that just adds a bit too much cushioning, and they're a bit too hot and sweaty. I don't like this, but that's an option for you if you want to. Others recommend you just take them in the shower with you when you go in the shower, and as you wash yourself and your body, you give these a quick rinse and a quick wash, and they're very thin and they'll dry very easily. That's great. There are easy ways of looking after them. Thoroughly recommend though, when you do put them on, if you're doing in bare feet, that you put talcum powder inside them. When I first started using them, one of the things I noticed was that I got some blisters on the soles of my feet and where the arch is and stuff, just because a little bit of rubbing where you're not used to having rubbing, but actually talcum powder inside got rid of that straight away. And if you put deodorizing talcum powder or talcum powder that deals with foot odors, well, all the better, you know. So that's a top tip. Do I wear them for every run? No, I most certainly don't. I've only really worn them up to 5K so far. My longer distance shoes, you can see, trail shoes, for example, a much bigger heel on these. I've trained myself to run forward on the forward foot just by using these, if you like, but you can see how much harder it is when you see that of me running on the treadmill, how close my heel is to the ground on a bare foot. Well, it really does with these on. In a normal running gait that we're all very used to, you will end up thudding your heel on the ground, and that takes the impact right up through your knee, and you then avoid the whole front of your foot and the machinery inside your foot from absorbing that impact as it's supposed to do. The other disadvantage I would say of these is that you don't get that many miles out of them. I mean, I do a lot of miles anyway, so I have to change my shoes quite regularly. And I always know when I need to change my shoes because I start getting injured. With these, because they're that much thinner, the sole is that much thinner, they do wear relatively quickly. But it's a really good, healthy thing to do. My whole running style has changed since I started using these. I can go further, I can go faster, I feel better, and I'm less prone to injuries. But I can't emphasize enough, it does take you time to work into these and to work yourself up to a stage that you can use them for longer distances. Do not go straight in, otherwise you will hurt yourself. If you do hurt yourself, I'll post some links to some videos of how you can use infrared lamps and how you can use massage rollers to deal with running and other injuries acquired. But if you're thinking about barefoot running and you're thinking about some Vibram 5 fingers, I've got to say it's a really, really good idea. I like them very much. They do look a little bit strange, and you will get a few looks if you wear them out, but if you're happy to cope with that, then go for it, grab yourself a pair, change your running, and have a fantastic time. And finally, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Both those two things really make a difference. Thanks very much for looking.